Hello and welcome to my podcast. I'm Daji Alevado. This is my first episode ever. And I will be talking about the Oscars. I want to talk about the Oscars 2025, but I don't want to go deep down into what happened exactly. And I want to analyze more of the cultural experience that the Oscars are. Also, I am a film person, and by that I mean I'm a film student. This is my last semester in film school, and I'm involved with film. So this is one thing that makes me very excited to talk about, especially because the Oscars are really big and there are people involved with film and also people that are not involved, but they like to watch the Oscars. And my podcast in general is not going to be only about film. Actually, film is going to be just a small part of it. And since this is my first episode, I think it deserves an explanation of who I am and what I'm going to be doing here. So basically, I'm Daji Alevado, like I said, but if you want to hear my name in my native tongue, my name is Daji Alevado, which is Portuguese. I mean, it's the Portuguese pronunciation. Anyway, and I am creating this podcast because, honestly, I've always been connected to communications since I was younger. And I think the greatest example of that is iCarly was my diva. Carly was my diva. And I always had the dream to have a show like hers. And from there, not only from there, I think I've always been connected to arts and creation and communications especially. So I want to have a space, a safe space to talk about things and thoughts. And I feel like nowadays, at least my personal accounts in social media don't reflect this personal space, the safe space that I'm looking for. And for some reason, the idea of having a podcast kind of gives me this sense of safety. Talking is my superpower. Chatting is one of my hobbies, for real. And I needed a space to just pour my heart out and talk about things, about the world and experiences and just opinions. And what I'm trying to do here is give the perspective of someone that lives in the US, specifically in New York City. I'm originally from Brazil. I grew up in Brazil, but I've been in the US for 8 years. So I really want to make connections to people, and maybe this is not going to be a conversation per se because no one's talking to me. I'm just rambling, but I hope whoever is listening to this can relate and comment and maybe contact me and maybe we can be friends. Who knows? I just want to put ideas out there, I think. And the Oscars being the first topic is something interesting because this edition of the Oscars was very important for Brazilians because we had the first Brazilian movie to win an Oscar. Yeah, I think this is a good start to explain why I'm doing this. So basically, like I said, Brazil was there. That's not something common. I mean, the Academy is American and films are a huge thing for American culture. But in Brazil, things are a little different. We do have amazing films, but it's not as big as the US, obviously, or France, I would say, are the historically most well-known countries for film. But Brazil is very passionate about, Brazilians are very passionate about their country, or our country, because I'm part of the Brazilians. Anyway, and it's just interesting to see the difference in the reaction people had and how people deal with loss or wins. So basically, the first thing I want to talk about is Best Picture 2025 was Honora, and the Best Leading Actress was Mikey Madison. She was the winner. We had in Brazil, right? Brazilians had I'm Still Here nominated for Best Picture, and Fernanda Torres was the leading actress, which was also a nominee. And we're also the winner for international film. And that's something very interesting because here in the US, I saw some people talking about it and cinema culture in New York City specifically is very strong. In Brazil, we consume a lot of American films. I think all over the world, people just consume American films, American culture, American music. American actors are famous all over the place. You know, like, it's something that it's not even a big deal. I think that's very interesting. Not that it's not a big deal, but like for an American, your pop culture is the world's pop culture, at least as of now, March of 2025. That's how it is. Maybe one day this is going to change, but I really doubt. And for other countries, that's really not how it is. I'm Still Here, the Brazilian movie that was nominated. It was like a huge deal for Brazilians. But in the US, like, people know about the film, but I do know a lot of people that didn't watch it. You know, like, I know people that watched some of the films, especially like Best Picture nominees, and they didn't watch I'm Still Here because it's in a foreign language, you know, like, and all these layers. And yeah, layers of like difference of culture, even though the US also has like a mix of cultures within the country. Like, the culture of the country is very mixed and is becoming more mixed. This is still like a barrier because the US doesn't need to consume arts, content, anything from outside of their own culture, basically, like their own world, which is like the US. The US, even if it's like music from like Americans that have a different heritage, not different heritage, but like a heritage that is not like white, let's suppose, which is like what a lot of people from outside the US think American culture is like white culture because of the way things were promoted through American culture in the past. You know, like, this is like what some people think. But nowadays, you know, we have more representation of different groups. But even then, it's still American. We're talking about people that immigrated to the US and their parents made it work here. And then maybe they had kids here, and this person is a first generation, second generation, third generation immigrant. But, you know, the culture gets mixed, and then this is like American. I think this is a very funny thing because, for example, Zoe Saldana, she won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, and she was talking about representing Dominican Republic, even though she is American, but her parents are from Dominican Republic, if I'm not mistaken. And I know some people say like, oh, but she's American and she's representing the US, but I totally get why she's saying that, you know, because she's also bringing the culture from like her country of heritage to this place, which is America. I mean, US. Whatever you want. I don't want to be the annoying person who says that America cannot be called America, but at the same time, America is the continent. Anyway, and while talking about this difference of culture in understanding each other's culture, I think the main point of this episode is talking about how Brazilians reacted to Fernanda Torres not winning Best Actress, like leading actress, even though this was something very, very, very unlikely. She could have been the best actress in theory, like technically. But because of this difference of culture, it was not likely that she was going to win. And of course, I would be so happy to see a Brazilian actress winning this award, which is completely like, you know, like out of the question when we think about it in our everyday lives. But, you know, it happened, guys. Like, Mikey Madison got the award, which I think all nominees were really great. And then the results for this, like Fernanda Torres not winning, was a Brazilian rage. And I really wanted to talk about this. Because I don't think Americans are used to the way Brazilians reacted. And this created like a whole complicated thing. And I didn't know how to feel about it. I really felt like a little ashamed. But at the same time, I get why Brazilians were so upset. So basically explaining what happened. So if you want to know that, like I said, Brazil and many other countries are not really represented in the Oscars in other categories besides international film. And even in international film, it's already like hard to get into it. Like, it's already hard to get into any category. It doesn't matter if you're American or not. But I'm just saying that if you're not from the US and your film is not speaking English, like a English-speaking film, things get a lot more complicated because the people analyzing it don't fully connect with the language. So Brazilian was nominated this year, a film by Walter Salles, who is a really amazing filmmaker. He went to PUC-Rio, if I'm not mistaken. This is a college. This is a university in Brazil, just explaining. But he also went to USC in California, which makes, like, a huge difference for, like, the way he is making movies and putting them out there. And besides that, he is a very extremely ridiculously rich man from Brazil. He's a billionaire. So that's what I wanted to say. I think that's all I have to say so you understand what's going on. So basically, for Brazilians, it was like being noticed, you know. I think for certain countries, like Brazil, for example, we really love our culture. We're really passionate about it. We do criticize it a lot, okay? I don't want you to think Brazilians only love Brazil. No, that's not true. But when we are talking about Brazil showing Brazilian culture to other countries, we get really proud because it's something that doesn't happen every day. And when you talk about certain countries, there's a lot of, like, stereotypes that come into your mind. And I would say Brazil is one of them. Many people don't even know, like, what Brazil is. I mean, they do. But I've encountered so many people that don't really know anything about Brazil. They don't even know where it is in the globe. And to answer that, it's in South America. But many times we only think about, you know, Brazilian butt and carnaval and futebol, or soccer for Americans. And, you know, it's fine. It's not a problem. It happens. Like, maybe someone from Brazil could think about America as, like, burgers and, like, baseball. I don't know, like, you know how it is. Like, it could be. That could totally happen to any country. But because the US has such great visibility for pop culture, then people understand the country and the culture a little more deeply. And Brazilians were really excited and expecting these awards to go back home, to be in, like, the filmmakers' hands, and they would bring it back home. Okay, so basically, one of the things that caught my attention about the post-Oscar moment was that Brazilians were really upset because Mikey Madison won the Oscars for Best Leading Actress, and she was competing against Demi Moore and Fernanda Torres, which is the Brazilian actress. Both of them were, like, favorites to win the Oscars, and obviously Demi Moore was, like, the favorite one to win the Oscars. Honestly, in my opinion, Mikey Madison was second place, but I think maybe some people, especially in Brazil, were thinking Fernanda Torres was, like, more likely to win. Being most likely or not doesn't mean that one is the most talented and the other one is the least talented. I think it just means, like, considering how the awards work and considering who the voters are and considering that we are talking about films that speak English and then Fernanda Torres was speaking Portuguese during the whole movie, we can expect, like, a certain connection that the viewer, the audience, is gonna have with the characters. And having a film in a different language can be a barrier. I'm not gonna say it's a complete barrier because we saw Parasite win Best Picture, for example. But I'm just saying that the chances get a lot lower. And I just thought it was so funny because, honestly, I didn't watch the whole ceremony because I was on set. Then when I finished my shift, basically, I came back home. And as soon as I got home, I turned it on. But I barely watched, like, half of it. I would say not barely, but I watched, like, less than half of it. And, you know, it was fun. I do think Anora deserved getting the awards, but not necessarily all of them. I'm not sure if I agree with, like, Mikey Madison getting Best Leading Actress, even though I think she's really amazing. But in comparison, I think Demi Moore was the one that should win the Oscars. Not that she win. I think Fernanda Torres was really good as well, to be very honest. But I think I'm a little biased because I'm from Brazil. But anyway, Brazilians did not like that. Brazilians wanted to lose for Demi Moore. And then I don't think the Academy was waiting for a bunch of Brazilians. But when I say a bunch, I say like thousands of Brazilians going into their Instagram account and spamming them in the comments because they posted like a picture saying Honora won best picture or something like that. And then I went to check. I don't even know why I went to check. I was just like scrolling through Instagram trying to see what's going on, you know, like after the awards, who's happy, who's not, who's disappointed, what are people talking about, you know. And then I just see this, and the post had, I don't know, let's suppose it had like 50,000 likes. Then comment section was like 150,000 comments, which is something very interesting. And then when I went to check what was going on, it was just Brazilian rage. Like literally every single comment I saw was from a Brazilian person complaining and raging and saying whatever and yelling and posting memes, but like they were all mad. I only read one comment, one positive comment from someone writing in English. I'm not sure if this person was Brazilian or not. Of course, I didn't go through all comments, but I literally scrolled as much as I could, and then every single one of them was from a Brazilian really mad. And then today I did the same thing because that was yesterday after the awards. And same thing. I only saw one comment, one positive comment. It was also in English. And the rest was only Brazilians, both writing in Portuguese and English. Like, but I could just tell by, you know, username or the way they wrote it or by what they were saying. And I think this is very shocking for me. Like, seriously, like I am from Brazil. Honestly, I feel like every single Brazilian person was mad for like not being represented, not being loved enough, not winning an award, etc. But like we shouldn't be mad about it. Like that's my opinion, honestly. And maybe every single Brazilian person is gonna yell at me and come attack me. Maybe okay. I saw like this one girl that she's like movies YouTuber, you know, like movie review, pop culture, not poppy, pop culture, Hollywood type of thing. And she posted something that I reposted on my Instagram. It was like a quotation from Fernanda Torres. She said like, when a Brazilian actor is nominated speaking Portuguese only, this is already a win. You can pop the champagne, you know, like this is most likely the end goal. If we win one of the awards for a different category besides international film, it's going to be so absolutely breathtaking. But it's just reality. It's not as likely. And then, you know, Fernanda Torres also asked Brazilians to not treat this award as like the World Cup because soccer is like, you know, the biggest sport in Brazil and we are very, very passionate about it. So that's the same energy we have when like we see Brazilians participating in anything else, you know, outside of Brazil. Like from the perspective of someone that is not from there, that's really absurd. That's really crazy that all this like thousands of people are gonna complain because they didn't get an award, which is like, you know, a bunch of selected people that are voting and they are selected people. Like what can we do? It's not like the audience choice, you know? And even if it was, I don't know if I'm Still Here would win because people have different opinions, and I think that's the problem with these awards and any awards really, and any sort of like recognition in the arts, because arts are very subjective. It's not like algebra, you know, that it's like only one answer is correct and that's it. That's not how you can treat arts. So I think it's complicated to, you know, go and talk to the Academy and say like, this is absurd. This is horrible. You guys, and Demi Moore and Fernanda Torres were robbed. I don't think that's the way to go. And I think that's a little rude, actually. I think it shows that we don't know how to lose. And it shows that we don't have respect to the other nominees, which for me is very important. I'm talking from a place of like, this is what my moral values say. And besides that, like being someone from the arts, I know how much effort it takes. And I saw so many people attacking Mikey Madison, saying that she was portraying, you know, a whore and things like that. And that's really not cool. And people like complaining about her talking about sex workers during the speech. What's something really nice of, like, it was really nice of her. And the film is about that. So I think she really has to talk about sex workers, because it's the same thing as like in Emilia Perez. None of the people that won the Oscars or like the awards in their categories mentioned anything about trans people. And, you know, that's why this movie was so controversial, because people knew like the themes were there just for an agenda and not really for the message. And I think Anora did this really well, actually. I think Anora was trying to bring the human side of like a sex worker, which a lot of people don't see. So maybe you didn't love the movie, which I understand, because Anora is an indie film, like very obviously not Hollywood, you know, type of story, even though it was really entertaining. And I think that's very surprising in a way, because it was really entertaining. It was truly funny. I get that it wasn't like absolute cinema for a lot of people, but it's because they don't get what's involved in it, you know. That's at least my opinion. I mean, many people who understand about film didn't like Anora, and that's normal. But I'm saying that I saw people talking about it and people that said, like, I don't know anything about it. I am just like the audience. But I think Sean Baker getting Best Director is nonsense, because it was such a small production. It was such a small, like a simple film. Everything was filmed in location. So he didn't really have to like deal with many things. And that's just not true. That's not how these things work. That's actually showing how he, with a small crew, you know, and like actors that are not like Hollywood A-list stars, he could bring a story together using little resources just on location. Like filming on location is very complicated, because, you know, your creativity is somewhat limited because you're not using a green screen to create whatever you want. You don't have unlimited budget or like a huge budget, and you have just a few people. He did the editing of the film. You know, like he's involved in so many things. He did the screenwriting of the film. And I think this shows how much of an artist he is. And Mikey Madison also deserves recognition because she was really good. And I know she was really into her character. You can totally tell. Maybe she did not deserve the Oscars over Demi Moore or Fernanda Torres or whoever you want to give the awards to. But that's literally just personal opinion. And unfortunately, that's how these things operate. So I think that's it. Like, people going and like to their social media accounts. At least Mikey Madison doesn't have a social media account from what I know, which is good because, you know, these things happen. People go there and they cancel they try to cancel or have this toxic behavior towards others, even though that's not necessary. I just feel like you don't have to attack the actor. You know, she didn't do anything wrong. Like, she literally just did her job really well. And then I saw people saying like, oh, she was just twerking on camera, just shaking her butt. And then that's how she got the awards. I saw a lot of people calling Mikey Madison names. And I also saw people saying bad things about Sean Baker's movie because it was the representation of the life of a sex worker. And today I saw this one person's review online about the film, and they were really upset because the movie was treating her, like mistreating her during the whole movie, saying that she doesn't have a chance, showing how like these white men in power, rich men, you know, like were controlling her. She thought it was really horrifying that people thought the movie was funny in any way, especially the moments that Honora is being held down in the mansion. And I just thought that was a crazy interpretation of the film, because everything that this person said, trying to, come up with a point like they are super smart, is basically what the screenwriting was trying to put out there through the film. I feel like a filmmaker doesn't have to be obvious to make a point come to surface, basically. So this person, the viewer, watched the film and understood everything correctly and got really pissed off about the film and thought Sean Baker was, misogynist. Like, he's like criticizing society for doing all those things. But he's showing it through a lens of reality. He's not, making Honora's journey any better than it would be in real life. He's just portraying it through the art of filmmaking and making us, think about it and have this afterthought, especially after the ending, which I consider very sad. It was like a movie that I really liked watching, but I left the theaters and I was really feeling bad. I had this bad feeling inside my chest, and I thought about it, and that's literally the point of the movie. Movies don't have to be happy all the time, and movies don't have to be obvious all the time. And we can just use things that would be shocking in real life and use it in a way through the artistic lens, in a way that it's going to make the audience reflect on it. So basically, the moment that Honora is being held down because her husband ran away, this whole scene, the woman was saying that it was horrifying, it was triggering, and this is not funny, and it's shocking how people thought it was funny, and there was some, in her words, she said unnecessary sexuality, even though that's literally what the script is doing. It's playing with these absurd things that happen in real life and making it, a double meaning scene. Because in the scene, what's literally happening is it looks like the man who's holding Honora down is about to assault her, which doesn't happen, but it's highly indicating that it would have happened in real life, And even Honora in the film thinks she's gonna be assaulted, and that's because she is a sex worker, and automatically people think that's okay. But I just don't understand why someone would say, try to criticize and go against the film saying those points, even though these are the topics the movie is bringing up. And I saw so many people, saying bizarre things about Mikey Madison winning, a porn star winning the Oscars. Why don't you give the Oscars to, what is the name of that girl? Khalifa is her last name. Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. If you don't, she's a porn star, very big porn star. She used to be, I think. I don't think she is anymore. And I just feel that's literally why this film was made, because people have such a bad impression of sex workers, and I just feel people are so close-minded, and nowadays that's one of the problems. I feel people think they are very open-minded, even though many people just consume whatever it's being fed to them, and they just go along with whatever everyone else is saying. And I feel this way about Barbie, for example. I saw many people, there's a monologue by the end of the movie by America Ferrera's character. And this monologue for me was such a basic monologue. It's almost it came right from a Pinterest or Tumblr post. And I've heard that people were really impressed by her lines, people that cried while watching that scene. And for me, that says everything. What is revolutionary in the eyes of many is usually what people who are trying to make the change or have more not from their time perspective are already knew a long time ago. And that's exactly how I feel about Honora and The Substance. I really enjoyed The Substance. I had a lot of fun watching it. I think there are many amazing things about that movie. I really love that both movies are independent movies, you know, and they had limitations, and that's why they thrived so much. Like, the directors thrived so much by being very creative. But I think, personally, the substance has like a message that is a lot more digestible by anyone, even if you don't have to think too deeply to understand the message of the movie, versus Anora, which is like a lot harder to grasp because it tells the story in a way that is more subtle. And that's why I think it's a little upsetting. I think this is one of the problems of the Oscars. Like I said before, many people watching the Oscars are people that don't really know about the arts and don't understand how the arts are used. I'm not trying to be the person who is selecting a group of people who can understand it or not, but I'm just saying that nowadays, especially, maybe not, maybe that was the way it was before, but I feel like people are very ignorant and maybe uneducated. And I'm not saying it in like a bad way. I'm saying it in the literal meaning, like, of not being educated enough to understand certain things, or being ignorant in the way that they don't have the information. And honestly, it's funny for me to say that because usually I'm not the person who speaks about these things, and I just prefer not to many times, because sometimes I don't feel like I have to talk about these things, but lately I've been wanting to talk about these things and bring up these points of like, maybe what you think is very like out of the box, but if it's very mainstream, it's usually not that out of the box. You know what I'm saying? It's not very revolutionary, because if it was, people would not be agreeing with you. I feel like when everyone is trying to yell those things that they think is like so open-minded and so revolutionary, if like most people are doing it, you're probably late in the trend, you know, like not late. I don't know. I feel like it might sound like I feel like I'm better than other people, but I really don't. I'm just trying to say that sometimes people just go for extremes and they repeat the same phrases other people are saying, and they don't really think about what they're saying. And I think that's really dangerous, like extremely dangerous and harmful. And that's, for me, like the example of this Oscars. People saying that the story, like the plot of the substance, is repeating itself. Really, it might be somewhat true, but at the same time, it doesn't give these people the right to say all those things about Mikey Madison, Anora, sex workers, and like try to make them lesser than by being a movie about people that work with sex, which is such a taboo, and people are always seen as like the bottom of society. Like, you know, sex workers are highly seen as the bottom of society. And I just feel like it's very impressive, because I know a lot of people, like a lot of women, that attack these other women that work with in the sex industry, if that's how I can word that. And I think that's very upsetting, because we should not be trying to, you know, attack one another in the same way that in this Oscars, something absolutely shocking happened during Adrien Brody's speech. He was talking about the message of the movie, and he talked about anti-Semitism and racism. And he basically said that we should all get together and be strong and not turn against one another. And then I saw Instagram stories from some people I know, which I honestly don't even remember exactly who was the person who posted, but I do know from like which group of people this person is like from. But basically, they posted a picture showing their middle fingers to the TV screen, and the TV screen was showing Adrien Brody like giving his speech. And I know they did that because they are pro-Palestine, which is absolutely not a problem. Like, I am totally in favor of not attacking Palestine. But at the same time, I'm not going to be against Jewish people, and I'm not going to attack them, especially the people. I'm not saying like Israel is an institution. If you don't like Israel as an institution, as like a symbol of power, that's fine. Like, you can have this opinion. But I don't think we should be attacking people personally for whatever they are. And I think that's a recurring thing I've seen in society nowadays, that we try to turn ourselves against each other by saying that you do not support that or you do support that, so you're a horrible person, you should be canceled. Like, no. Like, why are people doing that? I think we should always act from like a place of love and peace and trying to resolve issues instead of fighting. I think that's exactly what makes us weak, is like fighting with each other and pointing fingers. So I think this is one of the things that bothered me the most during this Oscar ceremony. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap up right now, but I just wanted to say that we are living in times of extremes for both sides, I think. And this podcast is actually being very freeing for me because, like I said before, I usually don't talk about these things too much. I don't feel comfortable talking on social media or even sometimes with friends. I just feel like we don't have much space to talk about it, or these conversations are not being promoted. I did have like professors in college, for example, that they wanted us to talk about these things and disagree with each other and be okay with disagreeing with each other, or being okay with like partially agreeing with someone and partially agreeing with something that the media is putting out there. But this is not the majority of people. You know, the majority of people are not having these conversations, or like most professors are not doing this. So I think this podcast is being very interesting for me. Just being able to talk about this and maybe have like people agreeing with me, because many people are afraid to talk, and I am one of these people. I don't know, but I was afraid to talk about things many times because I thought someone would cancel me or yell at me or put me in a box and say that I'm X, Y, and Z. That's just people looking at me and seeing like a slice of what I think and who I am. And this happens online all the time, like literally all the time, and even in person. But I would say online especially, we see someone's post, comment, or like one single second that someone says something that is not completely correct, because people make mistakes. And it seems that like people are not tolerating people making mistakes anymore or changing their minds. And this is one of the main things I want to talk about in this podcast. I want to talk about here is that we can change our minds, we can learn, and we can be more tolerant with each other. So yes, I'm talking about the Oscars, but I'm talking about things that are a lot deeper than that. And I hope to bring more of these things here. So thank you so much for watching. No, sorry. I'm so used to filming videos usually. But thank you so much for listening to me. I'm Daji Levado, Daji Levato, whatever you want to call me. And I'm here to stay. This is Laved, and I'm signing off. Bye-bye.